Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Ghost in the Magazine. I'm Elle,
And I'm Molly.
and today's movie is a new release. It's still in the theaters, and it is A Haunting in Venice, which is an adaptation of a Poirot mystery by Agatha Christie. Um, I want to start out with talking about this review that I found that was so unhinged. Because this person was like, he's a smarmy, self assured asshole. Like, who could care about a character like this? And I'm like, hello, I guess this is your first introduction to this character, because I have watched
Yeah,
so many shows with him in it, and he's always a smarmy asshole. It's just kind of how he is.
even Agatha Christie didn't like him. And that is the truth. But
Doesn't
also, not
surprise me.
only that must be first introduction to detectives as a whole, because they're always swarmy assholes.
Yes, very true, very true.
Name one that isn't insufferable. Name one. You can't. Or maybe you
No. Not really. Poirot's like a type 5, and then the Enneagram, if like the very analytical, like just like their emotions are shut off, and that's how
can.
like Sherlock Holmes is as well. And there's just like any of the like big detective characters I can think of, they're always that like Enneagram type 5, like they're smart, they're coded a little bit not neurotypical, we'll put
Yeah,
it that way.
neurotypical coded. They never, their authors never liked them either because Conan Doyle didn't like Sherlock Holmes either.
Doesn't surprise me. But, you know, I started reading the OG story, which is the Halloween Party,
Mm-hmm.
and this takes very interestingly not much from that story. It just takes some names, there's some symbolism that carries over, that kind of thing, and they just built us a completely different world. For one thing, the Halloween Party is set in England, and this is set in gorgeous fucking Venice with this amazing old house, which there's an old house in the Halloween Party, but it's not like where everything takes place. Um, and this house, like the setting in this movie, man, I walked out of this theater being like, I'm moving to Italy and buying a haunted house.
Yeah, you did say when right after you watched, you were like, I'm moving to Italy, I'm moving to Venice. I do want to visit really badly. Um, so you know, a magazine trip.
Yeah, we
It's
should. We
all
should
been on
all go.
Venice.
One of the symbols that they pulled from the original story too was the apples that are just like throughout. And I thought that they brought them in some interesting ways.
Yeah,
Um,
I was looking up sort of like what that means,
mhm.
sort of, and I was just looking at a lot of, and it's mostly just like strength and like prosperity, and I was like, that doesn't really apply. But then I remembered like the Adam and Eve clock,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
it's sort of like don't trust the apple, sort of, and obviously, uh, Tina Fey's character is often associated with apples.
Mhm.
So it was a lot of like don't trust Tina Fey's character, something Oliver. I'm trying to remember what her first name was.
Ariadne.
And also he dunked for apples and then straight up nearly got murdered. So
Mhm.
wait, are we doing spoilers? Forgot.
I feel like, most of our stuff is spoilers, and I am not going to be able to talk about this without spoiling it. So it is what it is. So yes, there are spoilers, and that scene where he almost, that actually came from the original story, but it wasn't him. It actually happened to a little girl, and that's the murder that they're solving. Is this little girl was at a Halloween party, and her head was put down in the she was bobbing for apples, and she was murdered. And right before that, she had said that she had witnessed something that she realized was a murder in front of uh Ariadne Oliver, because she was trying to impress her because she was a murder mystery writer. So that's the skeleton of
Ah,
the OG story. What I thought was interesting about the apples and him, we had that clock, like you were saying, but there was also like when he was bobbing for apples and his head was it was kind of a little bit like a baptism as well. And also apples in that in the creation story represent
Mhm.
knowledge, right? So it was interesting.
Yeah, I didn't even think of like the baptism sort of element of that. That was, yeah, that's really interesting actually. I just wrote a lot of stuff about apples down. It's like
Yeah.
apples.
They're also temptation, of course.
Yeah.
Which he's tempted to kind of like go to the spiritual side, especially after he has that event happen to him. Um, because there's another spoiler, he's under the influence during this, which
Yeah.
I knew something was up when he was glitching out like Mitch McConnell. So when he was trying to talk, he just like started glitching out, and I'm like, this man is up his own ass. He's used to interrogating and investigating people. There's no way he's just like randomly glitching out for no reason. So I was like, either like something happened to his brain when he almost died, or something else is going on, which we find out later that's the case.
I am less familiar with the character than I think you are, but I did notice that and was like, oh, did something happen when he got when he
Yeah.
nearly, but I thought honestly that the whole thing was sort of a hallucination afterwards. That's what I was going for. I was like, oh, this isn't real or something. I went a bit too, what was it, The Sixth Sense about it.
Which is interesting you say that, because that little boy reminded me of the kid from The Sixth Sense, especially because he was saying that creepy shit.
He reminded me, that's exactly what he reminded me of, actually. I was going, Oh, I actually did find this out after looking about the movie, and about the movie a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So him, that's Jude Hill, right? That's what the little kids. That's the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Him, he was in a movie, Kenneth Branagh, Belfast. Have you seen it?
Mm-mm.
I'll I'll not say too much about it, but Jude Hill is obviously still a kid in it. He opens up a bunch of Christmas presents. One of the Christmas presents that he opens up is actually Halloween by Agatha Christie. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's like a cute little Easter egg.
That was. I didn't even notice that until someone brought it up in a different review. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. I can't believe I didn't notice that.
The other thing about the kid is that he's reading Edgar Allan Poe, and at one point Poirot goes, isn't that a little much for a kid? Shouldn't you be reading something like Charles Dickens? And then the kid fucking bodies Charles Dickens right there. And I appreciate that, especially coming out of reading The Witching Hour, where like the main character in The Witching Hour is this guy called Michael Curry who thinks he's like the smartest man in the world because he
Yeah.
reads Charles Dickens, and he was a poor guy, but he's into classical lit like Charles Dickens, and he even names his construction company Great Expectations. It's so insufferable. Like, if you want a real insufferable character, like, this guy's low-key insufferable, but Michael Curry from The Witching Hour, Anne Rice's book. But the other symbol too, because like I want to jump back, I had written the two symbols down, and it was birds. And birds really come into play with this because the girl that they're trying to bring it through in the seance, she had a
Yeah.
pet bird, and it was a white bird. But in his dream in the beginning, there was like a bunch of like little blackbirds. I'm guessing they were crows or something. I can't even remember. But a big ass seagull jumps down and grabs one and just like picks it up and like breaks its neck, I think. I guess he's eating it. I've never seen a seagull behave like that, but
Um, yeah, actually I have seen seagulls do that living in
really?
Liverpool. Oh, they will eat anything. They're horrible birds.
It must
But I,
be different over there. Oh my gosh.
they're built different. It's crazy.
I thought it was funny though that that scene went right into him laying in bed with his feathery ass mustache because it looked like bird feathers.
does. I'm not going to do the rant about the mustache. I was going to rant about the mustache, but I don't think I will. But I will say that the beard is stupid. The little, like, he has like a little soul patch.
Gosh, yeah.
I didn't like that at all. I was furious about that throughout the entire movie.
The mustache is canon, I know that. I don't know about the soul patch. Like, I grew up watching the one that was on BBC. Like, my grandpa really liked Agatha Christie, and he watched that one that, like, whenever we would have it on PBS and stuff. And
Mhm.
so, I don't remember him having a soul patch, though. He had the weird mustache, but he didn't have, I
Yeah.
don't,
The weird mustache is a thing that's in the books, and I think every iteration of his character, I have never seen one where he has a silly little beard.
no, yeah. The little beard, it must be, like, specific to this actor slash director.
He's like, I'm gonna put my own spin on it. I'm gonna give him a little beard.
Give him a soul patch. Ew.
I'm gonna make him stand out and give him a Shaggy from Scooby Doo beard.
It's not the best aesthetic, but you know, he's a very like dapper old gentleman otherwise.
You could tell that he was having fun. That
Hmm.
he loves playing this silly little guy.
This weird
I
little
did it.
dude.
This funny little gentleman.
I guess we could just fucking spoil it. Like the thing that is at the crux of this all is honey, which that gave it away for me when they were in the kitchen and the guy cuts his finger, the ex fiance, um, and then they put the honey on it, and then he's like, "This isn't wildflower honey." I didn't know why, but I was like, "The mom did it right there." That was when I was like, "The mom did it." She had to have done it because this honey is important enough for them to put this right here and for him to say that and for the camera to stay on him. And the honey had to do with her because I knew that the wildflowers were the flowers that were there before that she dug up and sent off to her daughter. Um, so I was like, she did it. I don't know. I was suspicious of her from the beginning, I guess too.
I was so cross with myself because I only just recently found out about rhododendron honey and how it has hallucinogenic properties. I can't quite remember where I learned that from, but I found that out recently. And then when it was the ending to this movie, I was like, how did I not remember? How did I not remember? Because she was talking about the flowers and they were
Mm-hmm.
talking about them making honey from the flowers. And for some reason in my brain, I just didn't put those pieces together. So I was quite cross when I got to the end and I didn't pick that up.
Because I thought that was interesting. I knew that there was something up with the way that she died. I was like,
Oh, yeah, definitely there was something going on there.
I would say though, one thing a lot of times when I watch movies like this, and yeah, this wasn't a horror movie so much, it had supernatural elements to it. And I do like that they left it in kind of this limbo where it's like, well, I'm a little changed by it, but I'm not completely, you know? Um, but I feel like the way that the characters were written and the way that they were played was compelling enough to hook you in at least a little bit, to give yourself a little bit of sympathy for every single one of them. It wasn't hokey. It definitely was a higher budget film than we usually watch on this podcast.
I did like the doctor, especially the one who
Mhm.
played the doctor. I thought he was really, really good. And I thought the fiance was just the right level of asshole that you suspected him, but then
Yeah.
also you could sort of tell that he did care. So I thought that was he was a very layered character, and I really, really liked that.
Mhm.
I didn't like Tina Fey as much, but
Yeah.
I that might have been just because I was so distracted by the fact that she was Tina Fey and she was in this movie playing a serious character that it sort of outweighed everything else. So I'm willing to take a bit of stick for that because I don't know if that's if I really just didn't like her performance or if I was just so caught up with the fact that she was Tina Fey.
Yeah. I do think though that scream she let out when she found the medium's body, That was Scream Queen shit, like, I was pretty proud
Was
of her there.
I forgot that was her.
Yeah.
The Scream, because I remember that Scream was really, really good. I was watching just someone talking about the opening shots.
Mhm.
Do you know what a Dutch angle is?
Mm-mm.
It's where it's slightly like tilted. I have like a proper term for it if you want me to read it out, but
Sure.
an angled camera shot where the horizontal line isn't parallel with the bottom of the frame and vertical lines are at an angle to the side of the frame. So
Hmm.
basically it's just tilted.
Mhm.
But I was just going to say that it comes from German Expressionism, which was a type of movie that was made after World War II, which is when this is set. That was sort of a film type that was made in Germany directly after World War II, and that's
Mhm.
when this movie is set. So I thought that
Yeah.
was quite interesting that
Yeah.
they were using aspects of those films in a movie in the correct time period. I thought that was quite cool.
And the little boy is called Leopold. The reason why I wrote his name down is because in the book, he is the brother of the murdered girl. So they took the name and they moved it over to this character, which the doctor is like completely like whole cloth. And the reason this is interesting to me is when I watched this, immediately I was impressed by the writing and the characterization. And I was like, how much did they take from Agatha Christie? Like, how much can I give these writers? The writers did not take hardly anything from the original book. They took some character names. They took like, I think the way that
Rowena?
yes, they took like her name and like her basic description, which was like an attractive woman with blonde hair in her early 40s from the book, and that's it. Like really, as far as like the daughter was all their creation, the kid being like kind of a psychic a little bit, and the doctor was completely whole cloth because the doctor in the OG story was named something completely differently. First of all, it was Ferguson. The doctor in the movie was Ferrier, and Ferrier was actually taken from a murder victim. So they like read this book and just entirely remixed it and wrote like a very compelling story, I think.
I think this is way better done than I probably give it. Because I did think this was probably going to be quite a faithful adaptation.
Mm.
And I haven't read the book, but so I'm taking your word for it here. But I am quite impressed because adaptations are hard to do,
Yeah.
especially good ones. But I think the other two Kenneth Branagh Pro movies, so Death of the Nile and what was the other one?
I did not watch either of them. This came across my radar because my local theater was playing it the trailer during the horror movies because I would like go in. I watch all of them, when they're in the theater. So, I saw it even though it's kind of like on that borderline. It's actually more of like a mystery, but let me see if I can find the name.
I know one of them's Death on the Nile, but I know that I'm
Yeah.
fairly certain I haven't seen them either, that they were more faithful adaptations to the books and they were way less well received.
Well, it
So,
could be, Murder on the Orient Express, it looks like is the other one.
yeah.
And it could be since they did just kind of like lift details and like write a new story. I think that's a really good thing because these books have been around for a really long time. There have been a lot of adaptations of them, not just like there's miniseries, there's that long running BBC series, there's plenty of movies that have been done. I think that taking the original material and mixing it up and writing a new story is more interesting because people have already seen those stories. They've already heard those stories. You know, something new that's like the same vibe is probably going to land better.
You sort of need to put your own spin on it, and I do think that he's quite a good director. So
Mm-hmm.
I do think that he's capable of that sort of thing. But perhaps in the other ones he played it too safe by trying to play it too close to the original story, and that's where it was brought down. I haven't seen them, obviously. I don't
I
think I'm
haven't
going to
either.
watch them because clearly, due to reviews that I've read, that this one's far better. So I think I'll just stick with this one.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought was interesting that that I saw a couple of times is both the psychic and the doctor approached Poirot with this we're the same actually. We have like
Yeah.
similar, and I thought that was really interesting, like they were trying to empathize with him like on a career level, talking about, which of course it was because he advocates for the dead as a detective. The doctor, he's talking about his time at the war and like how he was surrounded by the dead and the dying, and the spiritualist, of course, because she's supposedly channeling the dead. And I really appreciated the ambiguity that they gave that whole thing. Like even when they're interrogating her assistants, one of them was like, "Oh, she's 100% legit," and the other one was like, "She's fucking full of shit." So
Yeah, I actually really like that as well, especially since they were supposed to be siblings and they were quite close, and it
mhm.
was fun to see them as just very different people. It was realistic as far as siblings go because God knows I don't agree with anything my siblings say. So
uh
that was fun, and you found out that he was going to, oh, where was it they were going to go to? That's
so
like the country, the place where they were trying to go to, like the place in
they were
America.
wasn't, I think it was like Missouri or something, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
And it was because of a movie they watched.
I thought it was interesting that he was going because she wanted to go.
Hmm.
I thought that was really nice because it would be easier to just say, "Oh, they're both going," but
Yeah.
it gives them more as like characters, realistic characters, that one of them is willing to concede for the other.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they got there in the end because the little
Hmm.
boy funded their trip. It was so
That,
nice.
so while I could kind of figure out the mom being the problem, the source of the murder, I did not call it being the little boy, um
No, absolutely did not call
the
that.
blackmailer. But it made sense because he's been taking care of his dad. He is very grown up. Um, it made sense in such a way, but it was like, because the guilt that that poor little boy would have felt, like,
Yeah, because he wasn't he friends with the girl who died? Or rather, he said that he was close with her. He said that at one point before the.
yeah,
So he must have felt so bad also getting sort of something out of her death, I bet.
yeah, yeah. And then ultimately, like, the catastrophe that ensued ended up killing his father because she suspected his father. And he dies the way another character dies in the book. Actually, the character that, let's see, Farrier was one of the victims in the book, which they're trying to like match this crime that this girl could have witnessed, and there's like three different crimes that she could have witnessed that were in the area at the time, and the one that he's named after was knifed in the back. So they took that too. They took all these little details, and I really love it because from what I can tell reading the book, and I'm only about halfway through, it is completely different. We've got a completely different story, different setting, different characters. Like, I really feel like they did such a good job with this movie.
They did something similar with The Haunting of Hill House, the TV series.
Mm,
They, I've read the book, The Haunting of Hill House.
yeah.
I hated it, but the TV show is one of my top 10 of all time. Even horror, anything horror themed,
Yeah.
just absolutely love it. But they did it with the second season as well. They just took small pieces of a lot of very classic books
Hmm.
and made them into something new. And that I think that's probably the best way to do adaptations these days when it's
Yeah.
something that's obviously, because adaptations are such a hard thing to do and it's
Hmm.
hard to stay faithful, so you might as well have fun with it and see what happens.
Yeah. And especially like these stories that have been in the collective psyche for some time and they have been adapted in different ways. Like Agatha Christie's work. I think that I actually remember watching a horror movie that I'm pretty sure was lightly based on the Orient Express one. Just and it was, again, like they just pulled elements from it, and I think it works really well. A Haunting in Venice is a new creation because they took the Halloween Party, that original Agatha Christie story, and put it in a completely different setting, took some of the character names, but built new characters around them, and just told us a completely different story that I thought was wildly entertaining. I was that was the best, especially after spending $11, the same amount to go see The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I felt like this was 11 better spent dollars.
Yeah, cinema tickets are getting a bit crazy. So when it hurts extra bad when the movie doesn't turn out to be good. So I was glad that my money was sort of well spent on this.
Yeah. Did we do Chud rating last time?
No, because I don't really, is Chuds good or Chud bad? I don't know
Chuds
what the
are
Chud is. I
Chuds
am
are good.
unfamiliar with the Chuds.
They were just our stars. I don't we took it from Matt, who is like sometimes, a guest here on A Ghost in the Magazine, because Chud was his favorite movie when he was a kid, and he was like rating things on Chuds. And at first I was very confused as well, because I was like, wouldn't it be bad because Chud's a terrible movie? But we've just come around on it. So
Okay, so Chuds are good. We
yep,
like the Chuds.
it's like stars, and it's a 5-star scale, but they're Chuds instead. How many Chuds would you give this?
I would give this 3.5 Chuds.
Very similar. I would give this four Chuds. So
I don't know how he's half a Chud. Maybe he's missing a head. It's a headless Chud. I give this 3 full Chuds and 1 headless Chud.
yes,
1
I always say
decapitated Chud.
I always say it's the bottom half when.
Just a Chud head.
Yep, just a Chud head. Uh, so overall, I think this was a good one. You should go out and watch it. We probably ruined it for you, but there's a
Maybe
lot more details we didn't go into. So
maybe watch it before this. Well, it's too late now. If
yeah.
you've listened this far, then you're kind of snookered. Sorry.
All right. So, until next time, you can find this podcast at ghostinthemagazine.site. You can find us on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You can find me at Nocturnical.
And you can find me on Molly McGill08 for now. I'm
Okay.
still setting up a public Instagram.
Okay, bye.